Live television is meant to entertain, inform, or bring people together, but sometimes it captures something it shouldn't. Something real, raw, and deeply unsettling. In this video, we'll go back to 5 more moments that were never supposed to happen live. These are real broadcasts that turned into nightmares, unfolding in front of millions who couldn't look away. It was August 28, 2003 in Erie, Pennsylvania. Brian Douglas Wells, a 46-year-old pizza delivery man, left Mamma Mia's Pizzeria around 1:30 p.m. to deliver 2 pizzas to a remote area near a TV tower. He had worked there for years and was seen as quiet and reliable, but this delivery would be his last. When Brian arrived, he was ambushed. A metal collar containing an explosive device was locked around his neck. He was handed a detailed set of instructions and told to rob a bank. If he didn't follow the steps, the device would go off. This became known as the Pizza case, one of the most disturbing incidents in modern U.S. crime history. Brian drove to a nearby PNC bank. Wearing the collar hidden under a shirt, he calmly walked in and gave the teller a note demanding $250,000 within 15 minutes. But the bank didn't have that much on hand. He was given $8,702, the most they could provide. He then walked back to his car slowly. The bank had already triggered the alarm. Police found him shortly after in a nearby parking lot, standing beside his car with his hands behind his back. He told officers he had been forced into this situation and was following a series of tasks. He also warned that the device was real. According to Brian, he was on a type of scavenger hunt. Each clue was supposed to lead to a key or code that would remove the collar. The officers handcuffed him and called in the squad but kept their distance. Brian sat on the ground visibly nervous, insisting he was telling the truth. At 3:18 p.m., just before the squad could arrive, the device Brian died instantly. Local TV cameras were already on the scene and captured though the footage was not aired due to a broadcast delay. Still, the event shocked the public. In Brian's car, investigators found the full set of instructions addressed to the hostage. The documents laid out the plan in detail. Rob the bank, find the clues, follow the route. One note warned, "Act now, think later, or you will die." Experts later confirmed the device had several locks, multiple triggers, and was almost impossible to remove in time, even if Brian had followed everything perfectly. Investigators began tracing the clues, but one step in the sequence had already been removed by the time they arrived. It appeared someone had interfered, likely as part of the plan. 3 weeks later, a man named Bill Rothstein contacted police. He reported a dead body in his freezer. James Roden, the boyfriend of his ex, Marjorie Deal Armstrong. Rothstein said Marjorie had been responsible and asked for help hiding the body, though he claimed it had nothing to do with the collar. That turned out to be false. Marjorie had a history of unstable behavior. Back in 1984, she had caused another man's death, which she said was in self-defense. In 2003, she placed Roden's body in Rothstein's freezer after a dispute over money. Rothstein later admitted Roden had threatened to go to the police about the Authorities believe Marjorie needed money and was trying to settle a personal matter. She allegedly planned the robbery and recruited a man named Kenneth Barnes to help. In 2005, Barnes was arrested. He told police that Marjorie was the mastermind and said Brian was part of the plan, but thought the device wasn't real. However, something changed when he arrived at the tower. Brian's family insisted he was not involved and had been used. Investigators disagreed, saying he may have agreed to the plan, but didn't know how serious it was. Rothstein passed away in 2004 without ever being charged. Many believe he was the one who built the device and organized the plan behind the scenes. Marjorie was brought to trial in 2010. She repeatedly disrupted the process but was eventually found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. She died from illness in 2017. Kenneth Barnes was sentenced to 45 years. Whether Brian was involved or manipulated remains uncertain. What's clear is that he got caught in a highly detailed and dangerous plan and didn't make it out alive. It was June 30th, 2011 in Macon, Georgia. Stephen McDaniel, a recent law school graduate, stood outside his apartment, talking to a local news crew about his missing neighbor, Lauren Giddings. He seemed nervous but calm. Lauren had lived just a few steps away. On camera, Stephen called her kind and friendly. He guessed she might have been taken while jogging. He even speculated on how someone could have gotten into her apartment. Then the reporter told him something that changed everything. A body had been found behind the building. Stephen froze. His eyes widened. His voice shook as he said, "Body? I think I need to sit down." At that moment, no one watching knew the truth. The man pretending to be concerned was the one responsible for Lauren's death. Lauren Teresa Giddings was born April 18, 1984. She was 27. Raised in Maryland, she was the oldest of 3 sisters. She had just graduated from Mercer University's law school. Her friends described her as energetic and intelligent. She liked running, attended church, and was president of the Federalist Society. She planned to become a public defender. In late June, Lauren and her classmates finished school and began preparing for the bar exam. On June 24th, she went out with friends, including her ex-boyfriend Joe. That night, she stayed at Joe's place. He said she left the next morning to go to a nearby country club pool. Her bank card confirmed it. At 6:08 p.m., she used the card at Zaxby's fast food. That was the last known sighting of her. By June 29th, her family and friends were worried. She hadn't replied to texts or calls. Ashley Muller, a close friend, used a spare key to check Lauren's apartment with Joe. Her car was still there. Her ID, keys, purse, and laptop were inside. Her small dog, Butterbean, was there too. But Lauren was gone. Police found no signs of forced entry. But there was an email Lauren had sent to her boyfriend David at 10:13 p.m. on Saturday, June 25th. She wrote that someone had tried to break into her apartment the night before. On June 30th, crime scene tech Steve Gatlin noticed a strange odor outside. He traced it to a trash bin. Inside a bag was a human torso. It was Lauren. Police later used luminol in her bathroom. The tub lit up, traces of blood were everywhere. Someone had tried to clean it. Detectives looked into people close to Lauren. David, who had been in California, was ruled out. Joe also cooperated. But something about Stephen McDaniel stood out, especially that strange reaction during the news interview. They interviewed him again. During the conversation, Stephen randomly mentioned being a virgin. Police had already found unopened condoms in his apartment. He admitted he stole them. That was enough for a burglary charge. A deeper search revealed more. A master key and another one specially cut for Lauren's door. They also found her underwear in his drawer. In the laundry room, a blood-stained hacksaw was recovered. Its packaging was near Stephen's belongings. Eventually, police searched his computer. They found disturbing videos and search history related to violent acts. One video showed him filming Lauren's window on June 24th, using a pole-mounted camera. It matched the night she reported the attempted break-in. Then came the full truth. At 4:30 a.m. on June 26th, McDaniel entered Lauren's apartment with a master key. He wore gloves and a mask. He ended her life, then dismembered her body in the tub. Most of her remains were thrown away in bags across the Mercer University campus. Only her torso was found. On April 21, 2014, Stephen McDaniel pleaded guilty. He received a life sentence and won't be eligible for parole until 2041. Since then, he's filed multiple appeals, all denied. In 2018, his father tried starting a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for more legal action. It was quickly shut down. As of June 2024, McDaniel is still in Hancock State Prison. Lauren's other remains were never found. She was bright, ambitious, and full of promise. But her life was taken by someone who had quietly watched and followed her for far too long. And the moment that truth began to unravel was caught live on camera. It was January 1998 in Tokyo, Japan. A 22-year-old aspiring comedian named Tomoaki Hamatsu walked into an audition, hoping it would launch his career. He went by the nickname Nasubi, which means eggplant in Japanese because of his long face. At the time, reality TV was still new and completely unregulated. There were no contracts, no clear rules, and no real protections. Nasubi didn't know what he was getting into. Not long after the audition, producers blindfolded him and took him to a small apartment. It had no bed, no kitchen, and no privacy. Inside, there was just a sink, a gas burner, a table, a cushion, a rack of magazines and postcards, and a radio. He was told to take off his clothes. He remembered his father's advice, never undress in public. But now, alone in a room with cameras recording, he gave in. From that moment on, Nasubi would live completely unclothed for over 15 months. What he didn't know was that this room was wired for non-stop filming. Everything was recorded. And even more shocking, those recordings were broadcast across Japan. Nasubi had unknowingly become the face of a new reality TV segment called A Life in Prizes, part of the show Susunu, Denpa Shonen. The rules were simple but harsh. Nasubi couldn't leave the apartment and couldn't be given food, clothes, or money. He had to win everything through sweepstakes in the magazines. In the early days, he had nothing to eat or drink. He lost weight quickly. Producers, realizing how serious it was, gave him a little bread and water. But after he won his first food item, they stopped helping. From then on, he was completely alone. He began spending his days filling out hundreds of postcard entries. On good days, he wrote 200 to 300. Each cost about 50 yen. He sent out more than 70,000 just to reach the target. 1 million yen in prizes, around $8,000. Some prizes gave him hope, like rice or a video game. But others were pointless, like a pair of women's underwear too small for him. Once, he even ate dog food out of desperation. He would cheer and dance when he won something. But beneath those moments was someone slowly breaking down. As the months passed, his health declined. He became extremely thin and lonely. He made imaginary friends out of a toy seal and a small figure he called sensei or teacher. These weren't creative games. They were signs of someone trying to hold on emotionally. All the while, Nasubi thought the footage might never air. But outside, millions were watching. At its peak, over 17 million viewers tuned in weekly. Eventually, a 24/7 live stream was launched. He had become one of the most recognized faces in Japan, and he didn't even know it. The show's creator, Toshio Tsuchiya, admitted he wanted to show something raw and emotional, even calling himself the devil of television. After 335 days, Nasubi hit his goal. He was given clothes and blindfolded again, but the show wasn't over. They flew him to South Korea, placed him in a new apartment, and told him to repeat the challenge, this time using Korean magazines he couldn't read. He nearly quit but was talked into staying. After 4 more months, he finally won enough to fly back to Japan. But the last twist came after he returned. Blindfolded once more, he was told to strip again. Then the walls fell down, revealing a live audience and cameras. For the first time, Nasubi realized millions had been watching all along. His private thoughts were turned into books without his permission. His censored image, marked only by a cartoon eggplant, became iconic. But for Nasubi, it was a deep personal loss. He was later paid about 10 million yen, roughly $65,000. But he said he never did it for the money. He just wanted to become a comedian. Years later, he spoke openly about the lasting emotional toll. He struggled to return to normal life, but over time he focused on helping others. After the 2011 disaster in Fukushima, his hometown, he became an activist. In 2016, he climbed Mount Everest to raise awareness and hope. Nasubi still talks about what happened, but he admits it's painful. While others saw comedy, he lived through something very real, and it changed him forever. It was March 9, 2015, in the mountains of La Rioja, Argentina. A French reality TV show called Dropped was filming its second season. The show placed athletes in remote locations with no food, no map, and no help. Only water and a GPS. It was meant to test endurance. That day, 2 helicopters took off after filming a segment. On board were 8 French citizens, including 3 famous athletes and 2 Argentine pilots. One of them was 25-year-old Olympic swimmer Camille Muffet. She had won gold, silver, and bronze medals in the 2012 London Olympics, then retired early from swimming. She joined Dropped for a new kind of challenge. Another was 28-year-old boxer Alexis Vastine. He had earned a bronze medal in 2008 and competed again in 2012. He was aiming for a comeback. The show was a way to test himself. The third was 57-year-old sailor Florence Artaud, known as the fiancée of the Atlantic. In 1990, she became the first woman to win the solo transatlantic yacht race. This was a different kind of challenge for her, on land, not at sea. At 5 p.m., both helicopters lifted into the air, flying over the desert landscape. They were filming aerial shots. One helicopter was owned by the La Rioja regional government, the other by the Santiago del Estero province. Both were Squirrel B-3 models. The 2 helicopters flew close together. One video captured what happened next. The second helicopter suddenly rose and hit the one in front. The rotor of the second struck the rear of the first. Both lost control and crashed within seconds. They exploded on impact, sending thick smoke into the air. David Ocampo, a cattle farmer nearby, heard the crash and ran to help. He said the helicopters were just meters apart when one tried to avoid the other, but it was too late. Flames and smoke made it impossible for him to get close. Police arrived and kept him back. He later said he felt helpless watching the wreck burn. All 10 people on board died. The victims included the 3 athletes, the 2 Argentine pilots, Juan Carlos Castillo and Roberto Abate, and 5 French crew members, director Laurent Spaznik, journalist Lucy May Dalby, producer Volodia Guinar, Dr. Edouard Gilles, and cameraman Brice Gilbert. The crash site was sealed off, and investigators were sent from both France and Argentina. French prosecutors opened a case for involuntary loss of life. One of the pilots, Castillo, had just learned he would soon become a grandfather. He was an experienced pilot known for helping rescue an Argentine president years earlier. Just before takeoff, the athletes had been seen smiling and talking with the crew. They had no idea what would happen. Former Arsenal footballer Sylvain Wiltord, a contestant on the show, had flown home just the day before after being voted off. He posted online that he was heartbroken. In France, the news caused shock. President François Hollande called it a sudden and painful loss. The sports minister said it was a tragedy for French sports. The Olympic Committee lowered its flag for 3 days in honor of the athletes. The network TF1 and production company ALP released statements expressing their sadness. ALP confirmed the crash happened just after takeoff. The show was canceled, and its website later removed all references to the series. Experts said weather and equipment were not likely causes. Investigators suggested that one pilot might not have seen the other in time, possibly due to a blind spot. Others questioned the safety measures used during filming. An earlier death on a 2013 reality show by the same company had already raised concerns. In just seconds, 10 lives were gone. 3 of them were national heroes. What was meant to be a test of strength turned into one of the most tragic accidents ever filmed on a reality show. It was May 8, 2006 in London, England. Guy Goma, a Congolese Frenchman, arrived at the BBC television centre for a job interview. He had applied for a position in the IT department and was calmly waiting in the reception area, expecting a normal day. But what happened next would turn him into an unexpected internet sensation. Goma held a business degree and had experience working as a computer technician. He was simply there for a job opportunity. At the same time, another man named Guy Cuny, was also at the BBC. Cuny was a respected British tech journalist who had been invited to speak live on BBC News 24 about a legal dispute between Apple Corps, the Beatles record label, and Apple Computer. However, Cuny was waiting in a different reception area. A BBC producer was sent to find Cuny, but mistakenly went to the main reception where Goma was seated. When the producer asked for Guy, the receptionist pointed to Goma. Assuming he was being called for his interview, Goma said yes and followed. He was led upstairs, met by a makeup artist, and fitted with a microphone. Though confused, he remained calm, thinking this might be part of the interview process. Soon Goma was seated in front of a camera. Around him were bright lights and TV monitors. Before he could fully understand what was happening, journalist Karen Bowerman sat across from him and welcomed him on air. She introduced him to viewers as Guy Cuny, editor of the technology website Wireless. Goma's expression quickly shifted. He realized there had been a major mistake. Despite being caught off guard, Goma decided to go along with it. When asked about the court case, he answered vaguely, saying he was surprised and had expected something different. Bowerman didn't notice anything wrong and continued with more questions about the future of music downloads. Goma did his best to respond, even saying that people wanted to access music quickly and easily. Though clearly out of place, he stayed respectful and composed throughout the brief live interview. After the broadcast, Goma told the staff there had been a mix-up. He explained he was not Guy Cuny and had only come for a job interview, but there was no immediate reaction. About 20 minutes later, he was taken to the actual interview, which lasted 10 minutes. He didn't get the job. As Goma left the building, he called his brother to explain what had happened, but the world already knew. The clip had gone live and the internet quickly picked it up. His cousin in France called him in shock. People were sharing the video everywhere. Goma became known as the wrong guy. The attention overwhelmed him. He stayed inside, anxious about the sudden fame. Although some media outlets later invited him for follow-up appearances, the BBC never offered an apology or any payment. In one show, a host joked about Goma by introducing him as different characters and asking unrelated questions. Goma played along, still processing the experience. Eventually, Goma returned to the BBC for a proper interview where he explained the mix-up and offered an apology to the real Guy Cuny, who had watched the entire thing unfold from another room. The BBC quietly moved on and never aired the original interview they had planned with Cuny. The clip of Goma's live moment spread fast online. It became one of the BBC's most famous bloopers. People admired how calm he stayed and even joked that some of his vague answers were accurate predictions about the future of digital media. But behind the laughs, Goma saw none of the benefits. For 17 years, the clip was shared widely, including in BBC trailers and comedy shows. Yet Goma was never paid. In 2023, he finally spoke out on a podcast, saying he planned to take legal action. He said the BBC had used his image without permission and owed him compensation. Today, Goma works for a charity supporting people with learning disabilities. He's also thinking about writing a book titled Wrong Guy. Nearly 2 decades later, the clip still circulates, but for Goma, it's not just a funny memory. It's a moment that shaped his life forever.